really looking forward to chat with Amanda Thebe on menopause.
See, there's like 2 pages of symptoms. And so I polled the group and I just said, you know, what are the worst symptoms for you? Because most people think periods stop, hot flashes, kaboom, you're done.
It really comes down to what works for you and how better you can adhere to it. It is a period where there is a lot of uncertainty, especially for women that are going through the period or leading to menopause, or even like people that are not even women, like men. They should know more about it so they can understand, they can help other women. And this is a situation that I think even if we're not yet there, we need to learn about it. So I really wanted to bring you in because I know you recently launched a book about menopause, and I think this is something that I really want to talk about. And in addition to that, because you have been there, and I think there's nothing better than actually talking with someone who has experienced that. I get a lot of backlash sometimes because if I mention that to someone, well, you haven't been there, you don't know how that feels. And I don't know yet how it feels, but I know the science behind it. I understand what it looks like, even though I'm not there yet. But it's good to sort of know from your take what it feels, what happens, and really tackle certain things like understanding the mindset going towards this period of time. So do you want to sort of do a little brief introduction of your background, and then we get into some of the questions?
Yes, I would love to. First of all, I would say, you know, anyone that speaks about menopause and aren't going through menopause or have never experienced it, do get backlash. You know, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. As menopausal women, we're out there saying, please stop ignoring us. Please don't treat us like we're invisible. Please actually give us some attention. And then the minute anyone gives us attention, people are like, you don't know what you're talking about. So you're screwed, really. So, no, but seriously, so I am a personal trainer and nutrition coach. I'm not a registered dietitian. I don't have your education, but I have nutritional education in my, fitness world. And I've been doing this, God, forever. Like, I think I was 21 when I got my personal training diploma in the UK. I'm 50 now, so that's a long time, 29 years. And I've always studied the different nuances and specialties within the fitness world, which most fitness trainers of any sort of caliber do, because we're interested in learning and continuing our education. And there was never anything there about menopause, but that never bothered me because I didn't know that it was a thing. And so I head into my 40s. I'm sort of the poster girl for someone going into their 40s, being fit and healthy and well. And then whack, I get hit by the menopause sledgehammer, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Sorry if I'm not allowed to swear, I'm terrible. And I was like, what on earth's going on? And so what happened is I struggled with symptoms for 2 years that nobody could ever identify. So bearing in mind, I'm 42 years old and I'm going to my doctor and I'm going to specialists for all of these different symptoms that I'm struggling with, but nobody's ever getting to the root cause and saying, these 4 or 5 symptoms joined together indicate that this could be a hormonal issue. I finally broke down when I went to a gynecology appointment, so 2 years later, and he said, these are solid perimenopausal symptoms, they're valid, you're not going crazy, I can help you. And I went, what's perimenopause? Because I'd never heard of it before. And so this is 8 years ago. And so that literally took me down the menopause rabbit hole. And so I never really set out to sort of write a book about menopause. It was never in my view. But what I realized is that in the health and wellness industry, it definitely isn't spoken about. It's almost like it's not relevant or important. And I get that because until I went through it, I was like, menopause, whatever. But actually going through it and knowing that this is with me until the day I die, which is going to be hopefully another 50 years, that's a long time. That's half my life I'm going to be menopausal. we deserve to have education. We deserve to know what our treatment options are. We deserve to know what the nuances are with regard to our nutritional needs and our exercise needs. And so just by doing years of layman's research and gathering information, I ended up pulling a book together because I had enough stuff. And it's been well received, and it's been well received because people are like, oh my God, all of this crap I'm going through now makes sense. Oh, and these are things I can do to help myself. So thank you. Like, I'll start doing that. And so that's basically my viewpoint. I'm a person that's gone through it. I'm a person from the industry that everybody watching is in. And I knew there was a big educational gap. So we go from pre-post pregnancy to being over 65, over 70 in a chair with a resistance band. Like, there's nothing in between.
I think we forget a lot about things we can't control, and we just forget about them. We think, oh, this is the end of my life. I'm just old. Is that the perception that women would see around that area?
Conversation around like what the menopause transition is, right from perimenopause to postmenopause, and I know we're going to talk about that, isn't understood fully. And so yeah, there's all of these misconceptions about like, yeah, this happens when you're old, or when you're in the thick of it, literally with symptoms and cognitive crap happening. You're like, well, is this how I'm always going to be? Is this sort of the new me? Do I have to just accept feeling like crap all the time and not having the cognitive ability to do everyday things? And so it doesn't feel a very positive experience for many women, but there are, the reason I wrote this book is because despite all of that, there are lots of positives that can come out of it. And I really try and focus on that because we need it, right? We need to know we can more from this, yeah.
There are things that we can control, and that's our hormones. For example, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. What is estrogen? For someone who has never heard of it, just a basic name or what it is and what does it do in your body?
Yeah, so let's just do almost like an idiot's guide to the hormones and an idiot's guide to menopause, because actually just sometimes having a little bit of a definition is really helpful. So the main sex hormones in a woman are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Estrogen seems to be the one that's the most problematic for women, because what happens is our estrogen levels start to decline to the point where we stop producing like estrogen enough for us to. The whole point of menopause is that we're not gonna have a period anymore, and we can no longer reproduce. And so estrogen declines in order for that to happen, but in a fluctuating manner. It doesn't go in this nice slide way. It fluctuates. Well, thank you for saying I look great, whoever that is. I just had a quick wash. So it fluctuates in a manner that's inconsistent and not predictable, which means that symptoms come and go and can be terrible one day and not so bad another day. And estrogen is essentially our happy hormone. Like, that's the way I describe it, just from knowing how it was for me and doing the research. And that we have estrogen receptors all over the body. So primarily it's produced in our ovaries, but the receptors are everywhere, in our brain, in our joints, in our gut, and it protects our heart and our lungs. And so as soon as estrogen starts to fall and decline, we can feel it all over the body, not just like your periods are going to stop. And it can be a real challenge for women. And we'll go through the symptoms later. Progesterone is more of a sliding scale. It literally just declines because progesterone is there for us to help with pregnancy, to boost up the uterus and to help us grow babies. And so because we're not going to do that anymore, that has to decline. That's sort of something I call a calming hormone, because it does have a sort of calming effect on the body. And when that starts to decline, we often see a lot of women struggling with like anxieties and insomnia and symptoms along those lines. Both of those play a role in protecting the heart, the lungs, the brain. They've got really important roles in the body. But eventually they're going to go down towards like a really low threshold, like to the minimal levels. And then testosterone is another hormone that we have in our body, not in abundance, but we do have some, and that declines over age. It's not actually linked to menopause at all, but it declines over age, and so we do see a decline in testosterone, and it sort of falls around the same time as menopausal. And that's like your horny hormone, right? I mean, so that really does help with libido, sex drive. It does help with bone health as well. There's lots of benefits to testosterone, but they're the main players in the game. And so I'll go through a quick definition of what perimenopause is, menopause, and postmenopause, because this is, I think, the point that most people don't grasp onto, although the conversation's definitely opening up more now and we're hearing about it more and more. So perimenopause can impact women from their late 30s right through to their 50s and has an average length of about 8 to 10 years. And so most people don't realize that. And so that's what I was experiencing in my early 40s. And it's when the estrogen and progesterone are starting to decline, and it's usually the most symptomatic part of a woman's menopause transition. Like really bad. Like some women, yeah, people say definitely true. Some women, like, there's lots of different symptoms which we can go through, but it can impact them physically, emotionally, and mentally. Mental health, cognitive health can be impacted. As a time when a lot of women don't recognize themselves, don't have energy, desire, mojo. You know, it's a really challenging time. And then eventually they will reach a stage where they come to menopause, which is like the line in the sand, like you haven't had a period for 12 months. So you can go, woo, I'm in menopause. And then anything after that, you're considered menopausal or postmenopausal. And that's the state that you will be in for the rest of your life, right? For the rest of your living life, you will be in menopause. So although we consider menopause to be a time in our lives, it's actually a whole period of our lives. It's where we're going to be forever. And so as soon as we go into postmenopause and our hormone levels have calmed down a little bit, but they're at their lowest threshold, we may still have some symptoms. Some women will have symptoms the rest of their lives. Some women, their symptoms stop completely, but then the reduced protection for our bones, our heart, and our brain are all big worries for us after that. We have to really focus on doing everything we can from a lifestyle perspective to maintain a strong skeleton, to protect our heart, to control our weight, to look after our brain. So that's sort of like the whole shebang.
I wanted to also touch in the two hormones that I know we can control. At least one of those is insulin and cortisol. Tell me a little bit about those, especially related to menopause.
Well, you know, you're probably better to speak about this than me. I mean, this is your wheelhouse, right? You know more about this than me, but you know, I do have a basic understanding of cortisol and insulin. And the main thing to know is that during perimenopause, the declining estrogen, they're intrinsically connected. So the estrogen's role and insulin's role and cortisol's role are all connected. So the minute you start losing all of that beautiful, lovely hormone of estrogen, I don't know why someone decided to take it away from us, we can become more insulin resistant. You know, our sensitivity changes and our cortisol levels are impacted. So women will find that they're less able to cope with the stresses that are around us, and we need to really focus on making sure we can cope with stresses. And there's nothing worse than telling a menopause woman to calm down. Just de-stress and calm down. But like literally, I'm telling you, you do need to do that. Because if you're fighting everyday stresses that are hard anyway, and then you've got menopause symptoms on top of that, and then we also know that the estrogen and cortisol connection is a little bit haywire, it's more important than ever to like take time to do decompression of whatever form that looks
yeah.
And then the insulin, that's chances are is why we're craving more sugary foods. I mean, like there's also a connection with our intolerance to fructose. Like I'm like you, like I would never say to anyone, don't eat that and don't do this. But we do know that there's certain things that are not supported by the body. And so overeating on something that's going to be like high sugar content, that high added sugar content, isn't probably going to be the best thing for you. And so I just would say, like, to reduce the volume of those compared to the nutrient dense foods that you eat. And usually if you're craving sugary stuff, you can do all the tricks of, like, you know this yourself, like, to, like, increase your protein, fill up on your fibrous vegetables, like, do the things that we know keep us satisfied so that we can have our sugary treats, because why wouldn't we? But they shouldn't be in dominance anymore. Your body's not 20. Like, part of it is like, this is a change, and so we have to sort of adapt along the way. We can't do the crap we did when we were 20 and expect to get away with it, right?
It's going to be a little bit harder, but it's not impossible, because this is one of the main sort of mindsets that, like, it's all over and there is no potential to get a great body or, like, lose weight. There is actually, I've seen so many women like you, like, looking at yourself, you have been able to better at where you're at right now, and you're looking great. So there has to be something that goes beyond just thinking that this is over.
And I know this is really important to you as part of the conversation, is talking about the mindset of women in this, like, 40 to 50 to 60 age range. And I'm with it. I get it. It's such an important part of the puzzle. You know, like, you can't talk about, someone said that it's harder to lose weight even if you're working out and eating right. Yeah, it is. It's the same things we need to do. They never change. Like, you know, the nutrition science aspect, right? We understand the laws of thermodynamic. I can't even say it. And is it, oh my gosh, I've completely lost my words. I'm having a menopause moment. The law of thermodynamics, sorry, the words wouldn't come out. So we understand, like, how energy balance matters, but just getting there and jumping over these extra hurdles make it more challenging. So, you know, we have things like, you know, we know that we have these sort of sensitivities to insulin and cortisol, and we sort of, like, tweaking along the way, and most lifestyle changes can help with that. Getting good sleep, getting movement every day, you know, like, keeping your stress levels down, and choosing nutrient dense foods as much as possible. And we also know that hunger hormones are disrupted slightly. Menopausal women are always hungry. They're like, God, I've just eaten and I could just keep eating. I'm so hungry. And so it's really important to work on, like retraining the body on how to understand true hunger and how to feel satisfied and slow down and enjoy your foods, all of those things. But when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, you have to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. But, you know, when you're dealing with all of these, like, you know, shifting fat deposits that go all the way from our butt to our stomach, and we just don't feel ourselves, and we don't exercise as much because we're knackered all the time. Like, when you've got chronic fatigue that doesn't lift, it's really hard to keep pushing yourself and pushing yourself. And then when you go and push yourself, you can't recover because you've pushed too hard. Like, it's literally a game of juggling balls in the air, and it's so frustrating. And so really having to identify and tune into the body and work out, you know, what exactly is going on at a real basic level. I don't want people to start fretting, going, well, how do I know if my cortisol is high? And you don't really, but you've got to judge how it feels when you've eaten your food, when you've exercised, when you've had a good night's sleep, when you've calmed down, and all those things together.
When we talk about the common symptoms that women will have around menopause, what is the most common symptom? Like, I have seen, like, a huge long list of symptoms that can appear. How do you know it's coming?
Yeah, you know, it's so funny because I was actually just going to show the list here because what the symptoms are, because when I polled, I have a Facebook group that I don't actually talk about very much, but, like, you can see there's, like, 2 pages of symptoms. And so I polled the group and I just said, you know, what are the worst symptoms for you? Because most people think period stop, hot flashes, kaboom, you're done. And hot flashes are problematic for a woman. Nobody really knows why they happen. It's something to do with the thermoregulatory system in the body and its decline in estrogen. Some women never have them. I've never had them, ever. But I've had every other symptom. And so the main things that we tend to hear are, like someone just said there, terrible memory. Estrogen crosses the blood-brain barrier, and so it really impacts women's ability. You know, like, I just lost the word thermodynamics. I couldn't remember the word, and that happens all the time. own it. That's what I would say. And people are laughing at me because, like, I just own it. I'm just going, it's fine. I can't remember it. I'll come back. And it does, like, into another conversation. Memory issues and brain fog. And just like a lot of women start struggling and thinking that they're having like an attack of Alzheimer's, or this is the way they're always going to be. And it's true that estrogen is part of the Alzheimer's puzzle. And then anxiety and depression are massive factors in perimenopause. And it can be terrible for a woman who has never had any mental health issues in her life to suddenly be faced with mental health struggles and then really not know why. Because that happened to me. Like, I was in a good life. People on here know me who are listening in. I had a good husband, really supportive family. You know, I live in a nice house, you know, la, 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 la. It just keeps going, right? And I'm so happy, but I would sit on the sofa for 5 hours a day, staring into space, miserable, wanting to end my marriage, not end my life, but I was pretty low. And it got to the point where I didn't truly understand what the hell was going on. And when I understood that it was part of perimenopause and there were treatment options out there for me, it just completely changed my whole attitude towards it. And it also made me really step back and just say, it's okay to talk about mental health struggles. In fact, it's not okay. It's super, super important, because I guarantee you 1 in 2 women will have these type of struggles, and they really, really struggle. And they feel lost and they don't think they can get any help at all. So as well as some of the mental health ones, a lot of women will struggle with joint pain, because estrogen receptors are in your joints. And the hot flashes are another great one. My main problem for me was migraines. I never had a migraine in my life, and I started struggling with migraine with an aura. And so I never had a headache, but I was ripped with vertigo, face numbness. I would lose feeling in all one side of my face, and my hand, I'd think I was having a stroke. It was all to do with like the nervous system in the body. And these are all like typical things that you hear women saying. And you go to a doctor, because doctors truly don't get any menopause training at all. Like, it doesn't exist in the medical school. They'll happily do antidepressants for women just like this, because they don't know what to look for. There's a massive gap in the education for the medical community as well.
Is there any potential remedy to it? Like, if we talk about hormonal replacement therapy, would that help? Is that for everyone? Can someone benefit from it, go back to a better normal than just having the symptoms?
It's a great question, because I mean, I never had considered hormone therapy an option for me, because I came from the camp from years ago that menopause and you take hormone therapy, you're going to get breast cancer, because there was a study done in 2002 from the World Health Initiative that literally stopped all of its trials and its study to say that this was happening, because heart disease and breast cancer. That study is basically being retracted by all of the researchers, most of the researchers, not all of them, sorry, but the World Health Initiative have never come out and made the statement that we know that it actually does not cause breast cancer and heart disease. In fact, women who are on hormone therapy compared to those who aren't likely live longer because of the protective factor that it gives in the body to your heart, your bones, and your brain. And so, like, for me, there are a number of options. You can take hormone therapy. It should be the first line treatment that your doctor offers you. Likely he won't, because he doesn't know. But the North American Menopause Society, which most people on here, I think, maybe from America, but in Australia there's a Menopause Society there. In England there's a British Menopause Society, and there's also an international one. Their first line recommendation for people is women is hormone therapy. It definitely isn't for everyone. Some people don't do well on it. Most women who go on it, though, what it does is it gives a micro dose of estrogen and progesterone. If you have a uterus, you need to have the progesterone. It gives a micro dose that's usually just enough to add some equilibrium back, like just to restore and just make you feel human again. And a lot of women will say once they start it, they can start exercising again and working on their nutrition and they don't feel as stressed, and then all of a sudden the weight comes off, right? You know, like it's the whole thing works together. If you can't take hormone therapy because you have a contraindication or your medical specialist doesn't recommend it, there are still medical treatments you can get that are not hormonally based. So there are options like things like antidepressants with off-label benefits and some anti-seizure drugs that have got off-label benefits. And then as far as like supplements are concerned, there's not a huge body of research on that, and that's the problem. And you know this for yourself. The supplement industry is not regulated to any degree over in the US, but to some degree in other countries. There's some supplements that can really help women, things like magnesium, maybe some melatonin for a short term, vitamin D always. Like I was just think they're my go-tos anyway. But there's things like ashwagandha, which is an adaptogen. There's some research behind it, but not specific for menopause, but specific for stress management, right? So maybe that would help. And then things like black cohosh is another alternative therapy. Again, there's only some small amounts of research on that. Some women find it helpful. I didn't, not even a tiny bit. Like literally the only thing that can replace the estrogen and progesterone and testosterone in your body is hormone therapy. So, and you can start taking that from in perimenopause. You don't have to wait until you're in menopause. You can take that from the get-go, and in fact it can make the transition smoother. You shouldn't, if you're suffering, you don't need to, is the point, right?
Do you talk with a gynecologist to get that prescription? Because if you say that your GPs generally won't know very much about it, who would you need to talk to?
Oh, it's interesting. So some doctors may be able to help you. You should ask for a referral to a menopause specialist. If you're in the US and you go to menopause.org, that's the North American Menopause Society's main website, and they have a find a provider in there, and everybody within that find a provider has gone through intensive menopause training. Usually they're nurse practitioners or gynecologists. Now, in the US, only 20% of gynecologists do any menopause management. Only 20%, which is shocking. So even if you ask for a referral to a gynecologist, chances are he may not or she may not have any knowledge base behind it. It's hard, and it shouldn't be this hard for women, but it is. Right?
Oh, Saga. I'll try to find out before I get there. All right. I looked at your book, and there is a section that I think you amazingly titled it Midlife and Menopause Collides.
Yes.
You talk about the crisis and all the things that are manifesting around that time. Fear, invisibility, low self-esteem, changing relationships. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I had to write this chapter, and I thought it was really important to write it because whenever you Google the word midlife, it always comes up with the word crisis. And I just was like, when I was in the depth of my menopause, like hell, as it were, the MenopoCalypse, that I really did feel like I was having a clash and I was having a crisis, and many women feel like that. And only today I was in a conversation with a group of women saying, I feel I'm lost. I feel like I've actually lost the true me. I don't recognize myself anymore. So as well as the way that menopause impacts a woman's self-esteem and confidence, which is a common thing, we see this all the time. There may be circumstantial stuff that's happening that really just adds to this like pot of stress and shittiness that's happening. I mean, we're in a pandemic for one. Menopause and pandemics don't go well together usually. And then, then there's women that are maybe going through career, juggling their career with a family, or they've got aging parents, or they're empty nesters and they feel like they've lost their purpose because we're mothers and we want to if we've had children, and if we're mothers, we want to take care of our children, and then they go on and we feel lost, or I speak to women and they don't feel content and happy in their marriages anymore, and the divorce rate shoots through the window through menopause. I don't think anyone should make any decisions in their life through menopause when there's so much else going on, I feel as though it's worth just like waiting till it all calms down a bit before making any big life decisions. But what I also found in my research, and I actually feel like this myself, is that even through the worst of it, you know, where women are so tough and strong, and we've got this ability to be able to like forge through. And when you get through the worst of it and you look back, it's empowering. It's a really empowering feeling to see what we're capable of. And so I really try and push that in my messages, that like it's a change, and it can be a positive change, and it can also mean that this is when you start to thrive. And if you look at women in business that are just changing the world, they're all women going through menopause. Like it's really, really inspiring.
Let's talk about the truth behind the belief that once you reach menopause, you're going to get fat. Is this, I know this is in part truth because of the insulin and cortisol that we already mentioned, but do you think part of this is also related to your mindset and the feeling like you're completely doomed?
There's no hope. Yeah, there's definitely that. And somebody even said that in here, you know, I exercise and I eat well, but nothing changes, right? There are barriers in the way that make weight loss really difficult. And we've got so much focus on that as women as a whole. We put so much emphasis and sort of like worth on our weight on the scale, that the first place I would start is we need to change that narrative. We need to change that narrative because we're so much more than how we look and how much we weigh. And so the work that is required for that is the dirty work and the hard work, right? That to me is what we need to love. But you know, the odds are against women in menopause. I mean, 9 out of 10 women in North America will gain weight during menopause. 70% of the population worldwide will gain weight during menopause, and a number of factors are into play. We've already spoke about insulin and cortisol having a part in that. Also, the hunger hormones have got a part in that. If you're always hungry, you're always going to eat. The fact that we don't move as much, and we probably eat more, and people don't like to be honest about that, but I know that's what it was for me. I didn't want to admit that's what it was. But there were some days I couldn't move at all, and I would just sit and eat a packet of cookies, right? And then I'd be like, oh, it's fine. And it was fine, actually. But it's just that you have to be honest about that. If weight loss is your goal, then, you know, maybe in the midst of perimenopause, when your symptoms are going crazy, it's not the right time to tackle it, right? Maybe you need to just back off a little bit. You know, we've also got the fact that, you know, the estrogen, it messes about with the gut, so women get bloated, lots of water retention. We do change from this more feminine shape to an androgen shape. Like, we do put weight on our belly, and in fact, some estrogen is produced in the adipose tissue. So having some fat cells is actually really healthy for your hormonal profile. So you don't want to like deny your body getting some fat on it, because it can be good for you, but it's like, when is too much, right? When is it a few pounds overweight to being a health issue? And so, you know, that's personal to everybody. And, you know, I think that but just in general, just knowing that the challenges in menopause are real. We lose muscle mass as we age, but it's accelerated through menopause. And also our fat deposits accelerate more through menopause. But you can get a handle on that. You definitely can. I mean, that's the whole point of my book. There's ways to do it. Nourishing your body that really promote better sleep, that make you like have a better attitude towards aging. Who gives a fuck if you've got grey hair and wrinkles? That's another thing. Women hate getting old. Why? Like, in a different society, in a different country, we would be revered. And yet here, women are so scared about aging, and I just want to change that whole conversation, you know?
Talking about your diet at the moment, do you think that has changed very much from where you were before menopause? Has that changed very much, or do you feel like it's very much the same?
No, it's not the same. And, you know, I've never, even though I'm sort of a nutritionist and I've been fit all my life, I thought it's fair to say I've never had massive weight problems, and I need to be really, I've tried to be frank about this in the book, because I'm a person who put 10 pound on. I'm not a person who put 20, 30, 40 pound on. And I know women are putting that type of weight on, and so I have some empathy with them, but I have to be very real about my journey, right? But regardless whether it's 10 pound or 30 pound, it's still the same process. And so initially I did look at my nutrition to help me lose the 10 pound. But what I did when I was looking at my research is I actually just realized, you know, in order for me to age and be as healthy as I could be and support my body as best as I can, I have to actually make some really definitive changes in my diet, right? And they're not mind-blowing. Nobody's going to fall over and go, wow. But what really frustrates me is that there are books out there are doctors out there who aren't nutrition doctors, they're just GPs. They're promoting diets that don't really have a lot of evidence behind them to back them. And you must see this all the time, Astrid.
All the time.
Very, very frustrating. There's no evidence to say intermittent fasting is the way to go. There's no evidence to say that keto is the way to go. Charcoal or whatever. There's all sorts of stuff out there. It drives me crazy. What we do know for a fact, though, is that we do need more protein as we age, and definitely through menopause, because what happens is muscle protein synthesis is disrupted through menopause, which literally is the ability for people who are listening to change and to use the protein in our body to help us build muscle. And so we definitely need to increase our muscle, our protein, to help maintain and build lean muscle mass. And that can be really hard for women because we don't like chewing our food. I'm not being generalized here, but most women don't like eating a hunk of steak. They'd rather have a little chicken breast or something, which is fine. But that's like a lot of chicken you're going to have to eat. So you need to finagle protein into your diet as often as possible. And like I've gone to the stage where when I have my porridge or my oatmeal, I mix some whey powder in just to get like a non-flavored whey powder, just to get some extra protein in. I'll mix it into my yogurt, or have a protein bar or something, just something in addition to the protein at the meals we need to eat. I definitely don't eat as big a portions. Now, your calorie intake does go down. How it looks for each person, it depends. The metabolism doesn't do such a massive shift that you have to cut like 600, 700 calories from your diet. But, you know, talking to different registered dietitians, a lot of them will say you need to reduce it by up to 500 calories. Now, that's with aging, not particularly with menopause. Yeah. And I think it's so individual to people. And I tend not to sort of focus on the calories anyway. It's really just on the way you fuel your body, which is I know what you like to do as well. And then after that, just really making sure you get enough fiber. Like your gut health really needs it. So trying to get like 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day through your high nutrient dense vegetables and whole grains. And sometimes I'll supplement that with a Benefiber, the liquid, the powder you stir into your coffee. It's like so helpful to you. And then as well as that, like fluids, obviously keeping my fluids up. And then the only other thing I do is I don't like have as much in the way of like chocolates and chips and stuff. Like I would happily eat a bar of chocolate, a bag of crisps every day, and I probably don't do that now. But I eat them and I love them, but I probably don't have the ability to be able to deal with that in my body anymore.
In those situations, do you sort of negotiate with yourself? Like, for example, I know I can have it, like I have the permission if I wanted to, but is it really worth it right now? Is it really aligned with my goals? I know that I'm more likely to gain weight if I do this all the time. That might just not be the right thing to do. Or sometimes whether it is actually worth it to, like, well, if I eat this, I might need to sort of swap some calories around to accommodate for this special treat. But I am probably be hungrier later on. So I better, like, is it worth the trade? What are your thoughts when this happens?
Yeah, I mean, what I do is that, like with any like weight loss goal, if that's what you're looking for, is that the whole point of it is not to eat less to get less calories. It is to eat as much food as you possibly can within the window that you're looking for. Like, so, like, fill up on the stuff that, like, like I could eat a whole watermelon every day, and I just find it so satisfying, and it's and it's sort of just like, it curbs things for me. But like if and I also like to try and plan. I'm a bit of a planner anyway, but like every night I have like a cup of tea and some chocolate watching the telly. Like it's just my thing, and it's like, it's just easy to do it when you don't like have any guilt, and it's just part of your everyday, and you don't have to like label it or anything as this is a treat. Like, it's just stupid. It's food, for fuck's sake, right? But it's just that, does it meet your goals? That's exactly what we need to do. And so yeah, I'm very much like, I want it to just be easy and practical. That's where I'm looking. But the main thing for me is the protein. And then plus protein can sort of make you a little bit constipated. That's why I also have the extra fiber,
Training. Do you feel like you had to change anything before and after menopause? Do you feel like there was any sort of must-do changes that you had to do?
Yeah, and during perimenopause, it's really important to honor the body, because like there's times when chronic fatigue, you can't even sleep on, and it's hormonal disruption that's happening, causing it. And if you're not on HRT and you're not getting help for it, then you've sort of got to like let it happen, because you can't exercise your way out of this type of really deep chronic fatigue. It's just horrible. And so, and the other thing about it is that it passes. And so whenever I was in that situation, I definitely had to like rethink about how I was going to like approach exercise. So if I had a workout plan for that day and I knew it wasn't going to happen, I'd sort of assess, well, am I able to go out for a walk? Because it's better than nothing. Can I get some daily movement in? And if I couldn't, then I wouldn't, right? But I had to be in a pretty dire place not to be able to do some movement. So part of the perimenopause story to me is that if you're gonna have days where you've got high energy and you do say a strength workout or a HIIT workout, whatever your poison is, really honor the body and know your chances are you're going to have to take a rest day the next day, or at least rejuvenate. So for me, strength training was mostly always accessible because the recovery from that can be quite quick. Running became inaccessible because of the catabolic nature of it, like the breakdown nature, and it just took me days and days and days to recover. Post-menopause, where I am now, I'm back running again and my recovery is normal. Like, I think it's just in those really deep hormonal fluctuations of perimenopause that it's difficult. I really push strength training like crazy in the book because I'm a strength coach and I'm biased, but also the research backs it up, of course. And as we know, I already mentioned that muscle protein synthesis changes, and so we really have to do our best to try and feed the muscle and then maintain any muscle you have and build muscle where you can. In America, 40,000 women a year die of complications from breaking a hip. And this is older ladies. This is ladies over the age of 65, I believe, right? Which is the same number of women that die from breast cancer, which is all ages. So it's a really high percentage of older ladies that die from complications from hip fractures. And 1 in 2 women over the age of 50 will break a bone. So osteoporosis is a massive problem for women, and it can impact our health. And so if you can do something to protect your skeleton in a muscular form, and then if you can do strength training, which actually, provides the stimulus in order for bones to grow again, you can reverse the signs of osteoporosis, which is fantastic news because it's something you can do. And in addition to that, there are 2 studies that have shown that building lean muscle and maintaining lean muscle through perimenopause to postmenopause can help reduce vasomotor symptoms, which are hot flashes, cold flashes, night sweats, which might be why I've never had them, right? Because I've always strength trained. So that's I'm like, if your hot flashes are your biggest thing, go and pick up something really heavy right now, often. And I think there's an entry level for strength training for everybody. I don't think you need to be worried or scared or intimidated by it. And in fact, I really go to a lot of trouble in the book to try and give women a good entry point into it so that they can do it at home and they shouldn't feel like embarrassed, and they shouldn't, they should feel confident and happy about doing it.
I think that's so important. Exercise for me is like something that if you don't have it, is something that you're really missing out of, because there's so many benefits from it, not just physically, but also like the mindset, mentally, how you feel. Your serotonin levels go higher when you do exercise. You feel like the sense of accomplishment as well. You feel like you've done something that makes you feel good. And generally, like it empowers you as well when you exercise and you gain strength and you are able to lift heavier weights. It's like you start shifting your focus from like a physical goal from a strength point goal, and that actually helps as well to sort of be more being able to shift your outcomes and your goals, and rather than like looking at the scale, you're actually no longer feeding that emotions towards the scale, because you're now eating to train harder, eating to perform rather than eating to lose weight. So I think it is very important to sort of marry those things.
Yeah, you pull that full circle, because when you go back to the midlife where it collides with menopause, like one of the remedies I talk about is strength training, because I want you to have that confidence. I want you to build your self-esteem. I want you to believe in your athletic ability again, because women lose that sense of belief in themselves. So when you change your focus from, chuck out your scales, instead of like, I weigh this much, no, I can lift this much and I'm going to lift more. It's a unique power that it gives you outside of the gym. And like you say, like, it ties everything together. There's that sense of accomplishment. And when I see women walking out of Walmart with 20 bags of shopping, and then they say, well, I can't, I'm not strong enough to do weight training. And I'm like, dude, you just picked up your grandkid that weighs 50 pounds and thrown him in the air. You can weight train. Yeah, you can.
And make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button so I can provide you with more information every time I upload a video.